Russia has moved a significant amount of military equipment in Syria in recent days, possibly hinting at a partial withdrawal from the country. Satellite images show a buildup of military vehicles at a Russian-controlled port and airbase in western Syria, while transport aircraft have been flying in and out. Now, Russia played a key role in keeping Bashar al-Assad in power after the outbreak of civil war in 2011. But the collapse of the regime has raised questions about how long Russia will maintain its military presence. And for more on this story, we have Marina, a military analyst at King's College London, joining me today from Munich. Marina, good to see you again. What do you make of these movements? Do you think we're seeing Russia withdrawing from Syria?
Good evening. Well, it's a little bit too early to judge, but it looks like Russia is slowly realizing that the Syrian bases might be lost, and therefore there is a need for a contingency plan. And the Tartus naval base is of specific importance because a portion of the Black Sea Fleet was stationed there. It was also used for repair of vessels. Therefore, the Russians will need an alternative, and that alternative might be Libya. And the Libyan port of Benghazi is a very attractive location for the Russians. But we still have to see what happens in terms of the new Syrian government and what kind of agreements the Russians can reach with them in terms of maintaining those bases there.
Tell me more about the possibility of Russia moving troops to Libya. How likely do you think that would actually be?
I think it's very likely because the Russians have been very interested in Libya for a long time, over a decade now, and they have deployed several private military companies to support the opposition forces of Field Marshal Haftar, contesting, of course, Turkey's power projection in Libya. Therefore, in 2018, they strengthened their presence with the Wagner Group, and they have been planning to set up some military bases there. And I think this is a very key moment. If Syria is completely lost, the Russians need to maintain their presence in the Mediterranean basin and be able to project their power there. Therefore, it's logical for the Russians now trying to shift their focus on Libya, which has been kind of on a slow burner in the background, but now is shifting forward in focus.
And how much of a challenge would you say that would pose to Western interests, a challenge that it might pose to NATO?
If we take the entire African continent, the Russians have been trying to contest NATO power there. In Mali, for instance, we know that the Wagner Group has been successful, which led to the withdrawal of the French troops. And in other parts, we have Sudan. There is also Chinese influence, so both China and Russia are trying essentially to exploit the African continent, or at least to win it for themselves, and Libya will be no exception. Therefore, NATO's power projection in that region will be challenged, and of course we have to keep in mind that it's also about military power, but also about natural resources that the Russians and the Chinese would be getting from the African continent, from those several countries. And it looks like they are quite successful in their operations, or have been to date.
Marina, thank you as always for your insights. That is Marina Miron with King's College London.
Galip Dalay is a senior consultant fellow at the think tank Chatham House. I asked him why these are such key bases for Russia.
So Russia uses this as like a logistic hub for the Africa operation. So it's really important for Russian transportation, logistics activities, and mercenary activities in Africa and beyond. Not only that Russia used this to heavily bomb the opposition held in Syria, the Hmeimim air base, but also it was very significant for its Africa activities. But as I just mentioned, the Tartus was very significant for Russian naval presence in Mediterranean. And let's not forget, the Russian Middle East moment was very much the Russian Mediterranean moment, because the Russia came to Syria 2015, which was the high point of the Russian regional and international resurgence on the world stage. And then we had a very significant Russian presence in Libya, and Russia has very good relation with, again, like Algeria, long-standing relation with Algeria, going back to the Soviet time, the close relation with Egypt. So when you look at the Russian presence in the Middle East, it's very much heavily focused on the Mediterranean. So therefore, the loss of, or the question, or the downsizing of the Tartus naval base will have a significant implication on Russian presence in Mediterranean, because also following the Ukraine war, the Cyprus also has downsized its ties with Russia as well.